we will definitely not shut up and dribble.
The champ is here.
I must be the greatest.
The champ is here.
I'm going to continue to stand with the people.
The champ is here.
I will not lose.
I'm a bad man. I shook up the world.
Yes, welcome. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with we. My name is EJ, and I got my man.
MH.
Yes, he is the DB of the show, and we are Black in Sports, giving a voice to the culture that won't shut up and dribble. Here, today, we're bringing you back inside the locker room to talk about topics in and around the game. MH, you ready to do this?
Yes, sir.
All right, man. So today, we want to bring you on the locker room and talk about growing the game, right? So growing the game internationally and just, what that means to, a couple of sports. And we're going to stick to the ones that we know true and dear. So we'll start off with, with the NBA, man, because I think, and MH, you can chime in and let me know how you feel. It has definitely had the biggest surge or most progression in this lane about expanding the game, right? So anytime you hear, the commissioners come on, that's one of the initiatives that they always kind of talk about with whatever is, going on at that time. So, let's just kind of kick it off with the NBA, man.
Yeah, I think it's been a steady progression since we always marked the dream team. And I think it even happened before that, but the 92, the dream team, and how impactful that was for the global game of basketball and having our stars internationally compete for the country and, the level of play that was above everybody else in the world, from our best players in the world, seemed to be the booming or the growth, or, that's the start of, leaking into the internet age and all those type of things where basketball kind of blew up kind of globally.
Uh-huh.
And now, Adam Silver, as you mentioned, is, they've kind of taken it to the next level of how they're doing things. And so it's kind of interesting where it's gone and where it's going potentially in the NBA.
Yeah, man. And that's definitely, if I would hang my hat on something, it would be, the dream team, right? Because that's one of the things you talk about, right? So the Olympics is that time that, once we've taken a focus, like it used to be college players that we had, that will go and be a part of our Olympics. And until they made that switch, and going blank who was the first one to kind of make that switch. But ever since we did that, and, the dream team, and, of course we had to have the redeem team, but just all these different, teams in the push of watching, the top talent from the NBA go and play in the Olympics, because it was like a source of pride to not only win a title, especially for some of the guys that are on that team that, never won a title, to bring home a gold medal, right? So that was that kind of honor in that. And I would say that that's a catalyst, but it's funny if we're saying to build, to grow internationally, it seems like that doesn't have that luster anymore as far as them getting the stars to go play internationally.
Not in that lane. It doesn't seem that way. I mean, so much has changed with the landscape of college basketball, as you mentioned, of international basketball, of the NBA season and how long it is, what off season looks like, contracts, people are getting paid more,
player safety, right? Like,
player safety,
games,
and then we don't have to beat the Russians. We don't have to rush. I mean, the Russians. I think the Russians were the one that beat us in '88 or '84, something like that. When they do something, it causes a whole lot of stuff going on. We start putting people on the moon and everything. Just so
yeah. Once they do something that puts motivation behind a lot of motherfuckers, right? So it has, but we have seen the effects, right? And then the Toronto Raptors, right? Like, we kind of forget that, that's actually an international team, right? Like, yeah, it's still in the North Americas, whatever, but it's something across the border. And then how that's affected, and the fact that they've actually won a title, right? So that's kind of cemented them in the whole ethos of kind of like the NBA lane. So, I just wonder how much of an impact, and when you're looking at expansion, if there's another team and where that would go for them, if that makes sense for the league.
I kind of feel and this I'm going out on a limb. I just kind of feel like they're on a slippery slope. It's almost like the conversation when everybody's talking about this, artificial intelligence and whoa, we need to pump the brakes on the Terminator, right? We pump the brakes. It's happening too fast. We are to a point right now where LeBron James is still LeBron James, and one time we got to kind of dive into LeBron James, just kind of how he built it out. Like, he's got a great career, obviously on the court, but just 20 years of just dominance and publicly never really made a bad move.
Well, there's a decision.
That's
debatable.
That's another story. But if LeBron's probably closing, getting close to the end of his career right now. I don't see him playing for another decade. But as moving forward, you can argue that the top 5 to 6 NBA players are not born in the U.S. And it doesn't seem like is in training. It's not, that trend is not going to change here anytime soon with Wembanyama that's coming up, and there's another guy that's coming up in 2024 that's international guy, and you got Joel and that African man in Milwaukee, and then you got Luke. Like, it doesn't seem like it's changing. The NBA's try to pump up Ja, and he doing too much, and they like, damn, bro, like we trying to pump you up as a the homeborn dude in Zion. They like, man, we done put you on all kinds of diets, and you keep getting hurt. Like, what? Who's a star in the NBA? It's like the league that's based around the stars. So, it's a new lane for the NBA where the face of your league or faces of your league are not American born. What does that do to your American fan base? Maybe it doesn't do anything, but I think it's an interesting
it definitely is topic. Right. Like, now I think because heavily the NBA is the culture, the Black culture, and as our culture, we're very accepting of a lot of stuff, right? Like, so we'll butcher a name, but we'll love the shit out of you, right? So
correct.
They call Luka all kinds of different names, fuck up Embiid's last name, all of that good stuff. So we are definitely an embracing culture, but I do think that's something they have to think about, right? Especially when you look at going and playing in the Olympics. It's not an easy wed no more, right? Like, they got to come because these guys that are in the NBA are playing for their teams. So that makes a change. And hell, even the All-Star game, like soon the All-Star game is going to be US versus everybody.
But even that, is it going to be even a competitive All-Star? If you think about the guys I just named, and you throw in Jason Tatum, John Moran, and Zion Williamson, you could throw in old LeBron, maybe Kyrie if he's not mad at something. I would still probably lean to the international team, right? Yeah. So I just wonder what that looks like in a league that's so brand oriented on faces of the league. Who is that face of the league now? And does Giannis want to carry the torch for the U.S.? I mean, maybe, but like that's his nickname is Greek Freak. So like it doesn't. I don't know. Like I get the point of being international, and it's the best league in the world, but how does that for their marketing strategy? That's always been their strategy,
and it's tough, right?
Since the '80s, like who is that guy in the U.S.?
And you're right. They put stock of some people, and it's just not really kind of come through for them. So, and there's like, who's the young phenom that's going to come over and take? So
Wembanyama, whatever his name is, Victor.
Victor.
He's definitely not from Nebraska, right? So like, I don't know. I mean, just imagine this. Imagine, and it's a totally different setup of how they market players and stuff. But if you take the NFL brand, right, and I think the closest thing to the NBA and the NFL is the NBA is the closest thing to the NFL, from the NFL to the NBA, whatever I'm trying to say, is probably the quarterback position, right? Like, they get paid the most. Their faces are the ones that are
team leaders,
like that's the faces of the league, right? And can you imagine if you had 6 of the Dallas Cowboy quarterback is not being from him? Like, could you actually imagine that? Like,
the Dallas Cowboy quarterback from Sweden.
I mean, bro, like, think of that. Like, They hold like that wouldn't work. We
Hey,
20 years away from
would
that
be
even
America's
thinking
team
about having
anymore. I'll
NFL.
tell you that. How can you have international on America's team, right? Like that. So okay. Let's move over to the NFL, and we can kind of jump back and forth as we kind of think of things. But the NFL is looking to push that, right? Like, and they had some initiatives that failed, like when they were doing like the NFL Europe, right? Where they were having these leagues over there using it as a development league, and and then now, of course, all the campaigns for all the international games that we put on every year, right? So London, Germany for the first
Germany,
time this past year,
Mexico.
Mexico City. So it's just like they're putting that product out there, but I just don't know if the other places are picking up the game, right? Because there is no other kind of reference of the game other than Canadian football, right? Like, with the Argonauts still winning championship after championship. But
Right.
I just don't know what other product out there is just kind of grooming those talents or exposing people to the game other than them just playing in those cities once a year.
Yeah, I think the NFL, like we said, it's probably a little different. They're more of like, this sounds terrible. I can't think of another analogy, but you remember when like Barnum and Bailey used to go to different locations, be like, the circus is
Circus is in town.
yeah, it's not the way to describe the NFL. I'm not being disrespectful, but I'm just saying, like,
Yeah,
I
they
think they
come
kind
into
of just
town, a
pick up
large attraction.
yeah, they just pick up their product and go places. This is our product. This is our, be a fan of the NFL tackle football. Where I think they are more aiming towards is the flag component. That's a way they can grow the women's and girls game into the NFL. There's been talks about flag football being a Olympic sport. And
Yep.
so now when it's Olympic sport, now you have those other countries are involved, and yeah, they may not be 6'6" and 320 like the high school kids are in Lubbock, Texas, but they can still play flag football, and it attracts another skill or another audience. That's football, just a different version of it. And I
Right.
think that's kind of where they push. So, when they got these international games, there's always a big push internationally for the flag component. And I think that's kind of where the NFL is growing internationally. But I don't think we're getting to a spot where flag is going to be played on Sunday. We're going to have fantasy football based on flag football. I mean, they tried a little bit with the Pro Bowl. That's about as
I was going to
close
say we do have professional flag. It's called the Pro Bowl, but
I think but I mean, that's another avenue. If you can't make it to the NFL, maybe you can make it to the Olympics playing flag football. Like that's another avenue of growth for the game. And I think it's a good thing for the NFL. Just probably a little different than what the NBA's model is.
and I think it's interesting, right? So NBA is developing player pipeline for them to have talent to play the game, to where it's like NFL is providing market awareness, right? Or kind of to get people in tune of the overall game, right? Like with flag has concepts of the game, and it's just kind of a easier way to spread it. And I think also the challenge is right, like
Cheaper, too.
NFL is oh yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
But the NFL also is a gladiator sport, right? So
Exactly. That's a better way to describe it. Not Ringdom Brothers.
so it's just like you don't have a culture mentality, especially when you're talking about these other athletic countries. The main thing is you're talking about soccer, which internationally is football, right?
Mhm.
Or the number one sport in the world, which is cricket, which still blows my mind that that's the number one sport in the world. How do you kind of take people to drop the racket or baton or whatever the thing is called that you play cricket with, or change the game from soccer to football, because like the way they be falling and acting, it's a lot.
Yeah.
But just kind of they're passionate about that sport, and it's a little we talk about over here in the States, like maybe golf is a high barrier to entry for a sport, because you think of course fees and getting clubs and shoes and
Right.
all of that stuff, to where you have most international people, all you need is a ball, right? And a lot of them are
Yep.
kicking the deflated whatever ball, and you just kick it to the end, to kick to one side of the field to the other. So I think there's just like a lot of uphill battles. And then of course the other things, right? So Toronto, has the Raptors. is they're putting a team outside of the states. So, you
I don't
know,
think that's like out of the realm of reality.
possibilities. You
Yeah,
don't think so?
I actually think that's um
It happened?
yeah. I mean, you see the ownership with the Jaguars has, I don't know what his connection is with London.
But
But
he's over there, or if they just
yeah,
lost the bet because they
they're
should be
always
called
over
the
there.
London Jaguars, definitely.
Yeah, so I mean, I can see that happening. I don't know if it's going to happen within a couple years or it's going to be 10 years, but I can actually see that happening.
And then
And
there's
I think it grows. The game grows as much as the flag game grows. At least that's some acknowledgement of football, right? And if you got a country in Europe that can represent, if you have an athlete in Europe that can represent their country in the Olympics playing flag football, I mean, maybe you get uh some segue or to some crossover to the actual tackle game eventually. I don't think you'll get there anytime soon, but maybe that's a way. And then the NFL has different programs, the NFL Academy, where they are really grooming, I should say, talent in the tackle realm. And they'll go out there and they'll come to college football and play college football, and then get placed in NFL teams. Jakob Johnson, who plays for the Raiders, was a part of that program. He grew up in Germany, right? So like, there's sprinkle of players that are doing it, but until that quarterback position is hit, until Giannis, until that, I think you just have ways to go. Like, it's one thing for a fullback and a linebacker to be, internationally born and representing. It's a different thing for Lamar Jackson to be born in the Congo, right? That's like to me, that's a whole different conversation that I don't know if the NFL is quite there yet, or even if the game is reached out to that point yet. That's
and I
coming.
think also, right, it's the development, right? Because it needs to come through a college or any kind
Yeah.
of, funnel system. So I think that's the toughest issue that you have as well, because it's I wonder like how many like where the regions are from the Canadian football, like where the regions of people and like how many, because that's like when we were playing, that was an option. Like if you didn't make it, you could say, okay, well I'm gonna go play,
Right.
in the CFL or arena or things like that. So I guess it's even understanding how that pipeline or the colleges, who are they recruiting? Are they looking? Are there any kind of global talents that that they're recruiting? But like you said,
But even in Canada, they got that rule. I mean, there's things that's going to have to change
mhm,
for it to happen, but they have a rule where you can only have so many Americans on the roster, let alone like on the field, right? At
field,
one time too, right?
right?
So there's a limitation of how you can create pipelines there. So I don't know what changes it, and maybe, like I said, flag is a thing, and maybe a team being in London is another piece. But I think the NFL is a little bit of ways from being what the NBA is. I don't even know if that's the product that they necessarily want to do right away
Well,
initially.
I mean, if you're looking at what's happened to the NBA, they don't want that, right? Like, I
Right.
mean, right now the NBA is like saying who's our next. We rode LeBron's back like
I'm
for
talking about, bro, we done
hey,
gave
they
you a new
retreading
hairline,
this.
everything. But we done put hair on your head, let you regrow that. Like, we done
So
tried everything, bro. Like, we, how long can you play? I know they probably duct taping Steph Curry's ankles right now. We need you for at least 10 more years, bro. Like,
and that's right, Curry. I guess yeah, you have Curry, but like that's the thing, right? Like he's fading. Like there's not much more with his ankles, man. Like does
what
he
you
even
need,
have
Steph?
ankles
What
anymore?
do you need? No back to backs? Okay, well, we're
Okay,
gonna do no
I
back to
got you.
backs from now on. We need you to be playing now. The NBA, the playoffs is where I think I think we can kind of get a better, because nobody's watching. I mean, I shouldn't say nobody, but there's a
There's a
significant
reduction.
less people is watching a random Tuesday night in March than there is once they get to the playoffs. So we'll see. They need their stars to be champions. I just wonder if your stars who are stars and are winning champions are not American born. Like, how does that change your model a little bit? Since the Bird Magic days, it's been about who's who, right? It's
Right.
that, it's MJ, it's Kobe, it's Iverson, it's Shaq, it's the American born player, it's Tim Duncan. Then you could throw in some Ginobili's and Tony Parkers and Olajuwon, but they're not really carrying the league. I don't know who the next person is in the NBA. I really don't.
You had Shaq. You had all these heirs, right? Like Kobe. You had heirs of like people that were just figureheads that moved the needle, you know. And
And
that's
we're
what
born in Charlotte.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
that's just like
bro.
your point, though, right? So, and we talk about this all the time, where you're building a product based on individuals, which the
Mhm.
NBA does, versus the NFL does it. Is the shield? You like the
Hey, it's a team.
NFL
Greatest
product?
team game in the world, brother.
Yeah, so. And we talked on another show. They're just taking everybody's days. Like, oh, you used to play on Saturday? Nope, we got that. Thursdays, locking that down. You play on
Yeah,
Christmas?
we got
We gonna
this.
play on Christmas.
Yep.
So they're just definitely coming after it. So how does this affect the players associations, right? Like, how do they negotiate? How, because now you're talking cultural differences, to where some we've grown up with maybe less and think about, just a bag, or, hey, I'm going to get mine. I can, for 3 years or whatever. So how does that in both sports, right? Not only basketball, but football, I kind of wonder what those conversations were. And of course, NFL doesn't have that much to worry about. They're still working to get on guaranteed contracts.
Right.
But I wonder, like, how's that representation? When does like Giannis become the I think Chris Paul was head the CBA, Kyrie Irving, and there's been a couple others. When does an international player become the head of that, and then what does that change for them?
I do wonder that, and you make a really good point. When you look at, let's just take soccer for instance, or some of the people that are paid. I don't know what Cristiano Ronaldo is paid or Messi is paid, but it's a lot, right?
A lot.
It's a lot of money. And then when you think about the faces of the NBA, I don't know if they're making Messi numbers, but whenever Giannis and whoever, some of the Luca, whenever they take, Jokic, whenever they take those real big contracts, they're going to be in the same conversation as the international
Course.
homeboys out there. Whereas the NFL is it's a little different, right? And I don't know if that's just the nature of the game or if that changes based on kind of who your peers are. If you market more of your individual player and his peers is Messi and Giannis, I'm sure he's going to want to go to the same steakhouse, right? Like, so I would
Absolutely.
think so, right? So I don't know, maybe that does change as the game becomes more global, to where you're making money like the top people in all the leagues are making, right? So
Right.
I don't know. The NBA is interesting though, with how their contracts have blown up with their current like salary structure. Like
Shit's
they've
ridiculous.
they've essentially eliminated the middle class. There's no middle class in the NBA. It's like you either a max person or you coming off the bench making 800,000. You either making 300 million, you making 300,000. Nothing else really in between. Like, and I don't know
If you
how
sit on
long
that
that
bench long enough, you'll be a super max soon enough.
it's like, hey, we give you 2 years to be a super max, and if you're not good enough to be a super max, well then
Well,
you
that's your
get
fault.
one dribble and $800,000. Like, there's no middle class in the NBA. So I'm just really interested. I probably sound like an NBA hater. I just am very interested in what the NBA is going to do moving forward. I think the AI is a little out of control right now. They gotta bring that in. They're trying to do some stuff. You saw the investment thing, right? Where the players now can invest
Invest
in
in
team with a new
teams.
CBA. So I
Yeah.
wonder how that works. Can you invest in the Washington Wizards if I play for the Denver Nuggets?
And start doing some shady moves so they roster's trash, like veto shit, like, no, fuck that, we're not doing that. Block trade requests and all that stuff.
Yeah,
It has to be.
that's
I mean, they'll probably be like minority orders, so it's not. I don't know if that comes with voting rights or things like that. So
I
that's going to
mean,
be interesting.
you
It's
start
pretty
seeing like
interesting.
random players sign for 4 years, $30 million.
Like, hook up my boy. Like,
Oh, that's-
yo, like, who approved this
why is he
fucking
signing
contract?
for that? And he got all these shares with somebody else. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Huh. It's interesting.
No, it's definitely gonna be interesting. Who else has done it? Because it's honestly, it looks, well, it's not look. NBA's led the way, and it kind of, I don't want to say is biting them. If you're looking for, what the narrative is that you're looking for your sport. But it just seems like no one else is really of the major. I mean, because I
Well,
guess if you look, hockey's already international, right? Or
yeah,
the
it's
whole
it's an international
it's an
sport, but
sport.
even baseball is. We've talked about this a few times of how in the '90s, I guess when I was really really watching baseball, it was
Mhm.
Griffey, it was Barry Bonds, it was Roger Clemens, but
Now
those are
it's
all.
now it's Shohei and
It's
the
my man. It's my man from. It's my Japanese bro, right? So like,
Japanese cats.
yeah, and he doesn't even speak English, really. Like, I think he's learning, right?
Mhm.
But he doesn't. He has to have an interpreter. So how does that connect with your American fan base? I'm sounding really like red right now. And I'm not trying to sound red, but what I'm trying to say is I wonder that how's that connect, or do they even care? Like, how does that connect with the young man that lives in Las Vegas right now, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. And maybe it's just a whole different world that we're growing up in that's different from what we grew up in.
So, and I think it's two sides, right? So from a team perspective, right? Like we've been in the locker room, so we know like in the locker room, you just get it. If someone can play, they can play no matter where they're from, right?
Right. For
And
sure.
then you guys start to like get your little language. He can pick up some stuff, and you guys figure out how to communicate.
Cuss words
Well,
first.
cuss words always first, right?
Yeah.
How do you, like you said, connect to that person outside of that locker room, right? Like, how do you connect to, that A's fan or that Padres fan or, whatever team, that these guys are on, other than my team is winning. You're making my team better.
Yeah.
That's like,
He's not doing a podcast, right? There's not a Draymond Green show for him that you can't, you know what I
right.
mean? Like, there's not an I am athlete for my man. It may be in Japan, but we're not gonna listen to it all in Japanese, right? So like, how do you to Ivory's point, how do you build those stories with players if you don't know those players, you don't even know the language? And maybe,
Mhm.
like I said, we're in a different world now, and you got to learn about 6 languages to really connect with it. And maybe that's what it is. And maybe I'm just an old
Hey,
head.
hey, Google Translate. Say the shit to the phone. What is that?
I guess the sphere here in Vegas already got it
Vegas.
figured out, right? Like,
Right.
so
No, so baseball. So yeah, I mean, I think really, if you talk about the four majors here, baseball is definitely integrated, and then they do things like the world was it the World Games or whatever that was
mhm.
played at the beginning of this season, where you're having that diverse kind of showcase of talent. Even the little league, man, they're starting it young, right? Like the World Series of
Yeah,
baseball with the juniors, and like you're hearing like
for sure. I think it's dope. But we talked about baseball being America's pastime, and it's not American anymore, right? I mean, is it? Like, let's just be real about it. It's to the majority of it doesn't get the numbers that the NBA or
Does that not make it
NFL.
America's pastime? Because that's kind of like compared to like, the Cowboys aren't any good, but they're still labeled as America's
That
team.
that's totally different.
How's that different, right? I think you're like saying like the same thing, right? So
The Cowboys are
everybody,
still very relevant. I don't know how relevant Major
I
League Baseball is into the.
I didn't say the Cowboys are not relevant.
Okay,
They still bring the TV ratings in.
I'm
I
telling
said
you,
good.
they bring in ratings right now. Put hashtag Cowboys. That's 10 extra viewers right there. Off
I'll
top.
make sure to put that in the show notes.
Romo, Jerry Jones. Get to
the algorithm, right? You say Dak.
Where's Zeke?
But no, like that's kind of like the question, right? Like, so even in reverse, the states are bringing soccer to, like, everybody's doing that race to bring all
They
the
are.
soccer
Yep.
teams here to the states. So everybody's kind of on track, and it's just more people have kind of reached, I guess, different methods. So I wonder what the original goal was, and if they kind of like looking back on what they started, what Dave started back in the days, if this is kind of the goal of where he wanted to be. Because because it seems like the international has built, but the home base is not, right, with the level of
Well,
talent that you're bringing.
we overtime elite, we
We
NIL, we G League. We don't even have the same nice pipeline anymore. So I don't know what happened. I don't know.
I think that base of fundamentals that we were hoping to build as far as the skilled talents to where, you know, these guys overseas are playing with, they may be playing professional, but they are playing like a foundation, roots of basketball where they're staying in that kind of system for a couple years before they're making over. So we'll see. We'll see what football does. I mean, I know there's been rumors, or I think I even saw, I think I posted on like my LinkedIn or something like that, where there was like the Super Bowl being played in London, in a couple years, if they would do something like that, which
Wow.
would be crazy.
Crazy.
To have like the big game played in
I'm
London.
telling you, boy, they're gonna have to let some of the baby boomers go. That's gonna have to be
because people gonna be hot.
Can you imagine the Dallas Cowboys and the Kansas City Chiefs? I'm talking. That's American. That's professional American football. And you saying they playing in London?
London.
Yeah, you gonna have to wait. You gonna have to wait a little bit for the baby boomers to not. They gonna have some opinions about that.
Lose they shit if that happens. But it will definitely be interesting, man. So it's definitely, and I think from a eyeballs perspective, I think that's really where the push is coming, because now they can get more eyes on the game. So I think that's maybe because now all of this stuff is really rooted, right? We talked about this, about the flex games, that they're not going to flex the Thursday night football games just yet, but we know they're going to flex them. And I don't want to say they don't care, but it's not, they want the fan to adjust pretty much. And it's about the viewer. They want to make sure
the viewer. I think that's a really good point. Who's viewing and how people are viewing is different than yesteryear too, right? So
100%. So
maybe what we're talking about, they don't even care about, because they like, hey, little Bobby in Japan got his cell phone, he's watching the game. So
do you know how many people are in China right now? We need to get them streaming on Amazon Prime this damn Thursday night game. So
yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I didn't care much about F1 at all outside until like a little bit of whatever that Netflix thing is, and kind of tuned into that. And now I'm like, oh, okay, like F1 is eventually going to be in Vegas. Now let me get a champagne and wear a white suit and and watch, right?
Get my Hamilton jersey, right?
Yeah, right. So yeah, I mean, not smarter than you. There's a lot of people that are way smarter than me that are doing these things that they probably had all these questions before. I'm just the guy that was born in Japan. I'm the black dude who was born in Tokyo, Japan, lived in Colorado, spent some time in Alabama, live in Vegas. Just, hey, where your local stars at, bro? Where your local stars?
Well, that's definitely gonna be the question. So we'll sit and watch, man. Like you said, we'll continue to see it develop and where it goes. But right now, yeah, the NBA, as far as who is your league star that everyone can identify with, right? Well, I don't want to say everyone can identify with, but it's either one or two things, right? Like Michael Jordan was your hero because everybody wanted to be like Mike. Right?
He played on Team USA.
Right.
Ain't no, like, I'm not disrespecting anybody and anywhere anybody's from. Like, it's all dope. But how Yao Ming, as big as Yao Ming was literally and where he was from, he still wasn't touching Shaq when it comes to the fan base here, right? Like, it just wasn't. And even in the marketing stand, like, we don't see Yao Ming on TNT. Maybe he doesn't want to do that. Maybe he's on TNT, whatever that network is in China.
The TNT equivalent in China.
Maybe he's on inside the NBA there. I don't know, but I know he's not on here, right? So his stardom doesn't continue. Whatever his brand doesn't necessarily continue. It stops when he's done playing. So how does that work with your current stars? I mean, Ja Morant got a brand too. He just got to get it fixed. He got that bone crusher brand.
Attention. Okay. on that note, man, we definitely gonna wrap it up, man. We definitely want to hear from you. So as you watch this episode, what do you think, is going, how the game is growing internationally? Is it hurting? Is it growing the game? Are you seeing different advantages from us growing the game? Definitely want to hear your opinion, man. Anything else for the people, MH?
All good, brother.
All right, man. Well, hey, as always, thank you all for watching this episode of The Locker Room. As you know, we drop new episodes every Thursday, so please hit that bell, that subscribe button, so you can be notified when new episodes drop, and visual representation matters. So check us out here on YouTube. If you're listening audio, we are on every podcast station, so Apple, Spotify, iHeart, you name it, we're there. And just remember, please stay safe, practice gratitude, and know we're rooting for you.
Screaming, all us blacks got is sports and entertainment until we even.
Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Look. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Spent about 2 racks on handmade new rags. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. That's everybody from sports to college class to rap and back.